Hey guys, my name is Kevin. This is the War Against Narcissism, and if you like this content, please like, follow, subscribe, and share with your friends in order to raise narcissistic abuse awareness. First of all, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you had a fantastic holiday with your friends, your family. Hopefully you were able to see them on Christmas, maybe not on New Year's Eve if you live in Quebec, but this brings me to the subject that I want to talk about, which is New Year's resolution. And here is my suggestion of a New Year's resolution that might be helpful to you. This was actually my New Year's resolution 2 years ago, and it is to build better boundaries. Now, when it comes to having bad boundaries, this is something that is very common with the codependent community, or the people that are the narcissistic abuse recovery community. One thing that sort of binds us all together is that we all have terrible boundaries, or we wouldn't be in this predicament in the first place, right? So with that being said, here are a few examples of bad boundaries. So a few examples of bad boundaries would be someone who says yes when they mean to say no, someone who agrees to do things for people that they don't really want to do or that they don't have the time to do, someone who overextends themselves as far as giving to people, someone who tends to people please, someone who is too worried about having people like them or too worried about having people being mad at them. Someone who holds resentment towards people. And it's easy to hold resentment towards people if you are the type of person that is a giver, and you give and you give and you give and you give and you start to give from an empty cup, and you start to feel like you're depleted, but you're still giving. And then when it's time for you to receive, or when you need to receive, you feel that people are not meeting you at the level that you need, or they're not meeting you at the level that you've been giving. They're not giving back at the same level, right? So these would be example of bad boundaries and how bad boundaries may be experienced by a person. Now, the reason why you want to work on your boundaries is because having bad boundaries attracts toxic people. Being too much of a giver will attract people that are too much of takers, right? When it comes to narcissistic personality disorder people, of course, these are people that are the extreme takers, right? All they do is take. So if you are a person that gives too much, you're going to attract people that are narcissistic. And as you may know, having people or someone in your life that is narcissistic will make your life harder, right? So you definitely want to avoid that. So as far as the resolution, the first thing you want to do is you want to identify your problem relationships, whether it be your romantic relationships, workplace relationships, friendships, whatever it might be, family relationships. Identify the people that you have difficulty in your relationships with them, and try to take accountability for how can you make this situation better without necessarily making it better for them, but make it better for yourself, right? What are you doing to participate in the situation being so negative? What is your part of it? Now, of course, I'm not victim blaming and saying that however someone treats you is your fault, because a person that treats you badly always has a choice of not treating you badly as well, but they chose to treat you badly. But if you enable it by not speaking up, by not cutting off the supply of giving to that person, whether it be in time and energy and financial, whatever it might be, you are participating in your own abuse, and you definitely want to work on your boundaries so you can cut that off. Another point that I think is important when building better boundaries is to write down these boundaries. Once you've identified your problem relationships and you've identified the issues in the relationships, and you have an idea of what boundaries you want to put in place, write it down so that you can better remember it, so that when you are in a situation and you're upset and these feelings come up, you can have a better memory of what to do in that situation. Because of course, when we become emotional, all of us, we tend to not be so rational, not be so logical. But if you write it down and you really memorize it, it'll be easier for you to pick a better option as far as how to handle a situation and how to handle conflict with a person when you know you should be sticking to your boundaries. A good example of that is if someone, whether it be a friend, a family member, or a romantic partner, is calling you and calling you all day long, calling you many times a day, and you're busy. You have a life to live. You have things that you need to get done. You have self-care to do, right? And you're having a hard time with letting that person understand or letting that person know that you need space. You need to recover from your time together, or you need to have time for yourself. A good way to do that would be to let them know, hey, I have an hour to speak to you, but after an hour I have to do this, I have to go. Or hey, I'm going to pick up the phone when you give me a call, but I can't pick up the phone every single time you call if you call me several times a day, right? So you can either decide to speak your boundaries to that person if you think that it might be understood, or if you think it won't be understood, you can just move on and apply your boundaries without necessarily speaking to them. Which brings me to my final point, which is it's really important when you start to build boundaries, you have to understand that building boundaries is not about getting people to agree with your boundaries. Building boundaries is about creating limitations for other people to have access to you that will keep you comfortable, that will keep you happy. Because as you may have heard before, putting yourself first is not selfish. Putting yourself first is what you're supposed to do, right? If you stop pouring into other people's cup, as far as your energy, your time, your finance, whatever it might be, if you stop pouring from an empty cup, you will not be so resentful of people when they don't pour back into you, because you're pouring from a full cup, right? You are taking care of yourself. You are taking time for yourself. And when it's time to take care of others, you are doing it from a place of, I have time for you. I'm not doing it because I want you to like me. I'm doing it because I have this and I can give it to you and it won't affect me so much, right? So I think it's really important to understand you don't need anyone to agree with your boundaries except you. You are the only person's approval you need when it comes to your boundaries. With that being said, I hope I helped shed some light on the issue. I hope I give you a good idea for a New Year's resolution. If you have any questions or comments, please leave it in the comment section below. This is the War Against Narcissism, guys. Salute.